Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show. Oh my God, look who's there. It's Rochelle. Oh my Lord, Margaret. It is so great to have you here again. And she's been traveling all over the world. She almost got enveloped in a tornado yesterday. So it's been quite the ride for her. And how you doing, kid?
I am getting through. Life comes, life goes, and it's always happening. I think it's all about how we are available to adapt to it without having the reaction of explosion, which I was very used to growing up. And that brings me into talking about a huge subject. We have an amazing guest today. We always say that because each one of these individuals is so special in their own way. But today we have Anne Alexander-Sieder coming to visit us.
Like the tree.
She is with Exvo. Yes, Cedar. Anne Alexander-Sieder. And thank you for being with us. How are you today?
I am really good. I just came back from Chicago. I was visiting my mom for her 80th birthday. All of my sisters flew in. We had an amazing time. My husband flew in just for 2 days. So it was a lot of fun. And we just got back this morning, back to Munich.
How long of a flight is it from Chicago to Munich?
It's 8 hours coming back, and it's 9 hours going.
Because it's headwinds and stuff.
Yeah.
I would imagine. But, you know, in talking about you, and you've been on the show before, but you've got some really cool stuff that you do, and you are an actor. I almost said actress, and we talked about that extensively before. She is an actor. She has done the most unusual thing of being able to continue her career from Germany, and has developed a whole program for people who would love to be an actor.
No, it's not just for actors. So I have two programs. One is where I help trained actors. So they have to have been in the business for a while. Been in the business, and I help them to understand their branding and then infuse that into all of their marketing, messaging, all of the things that we have to do as actors, so that they can finally start to get the roles that they know they're ready to get. It's basically helping them to show the world what they're capable of beyond like the typical stuff that actors use to show what they're capable of, which is kind of like, you have to do something to stand above everybody else because that's what everybody's doing. So that is the one program that's called Get Better Roles. And my other program that I'm launching next week in a free challenge, I'm actually launching the program mid-June, but I'm doing a free 5-day challenge next week. That's all around how I built that bridge from wanting to be an actor again, because I had been a professional actor in America. Then I moved to Germany, was here for about 16 years before I decided, okay, my life is, passing by and I'm not doing what I want to be doing. So the second program is called Passion Project to Purpose, and it's all about building the bridge to that thing that you would rather be doing. My kind of catchphrase for it is turn what you love into what you do without having to be the expert coach guru, basically. So
I'm not an expert guru at nothing or anything or in any of that stuff. But I do love what I do, and I do get to talk to some really incredible human beings. First of all, you must have started as a child actor because you've been in Germany for a while. So you must have been like 3 or 4 when you started.
So sweet. So sweet. There's a reason I keep coming back on this show.
But it is so cool because both of you are sitting here and you're just two beautiful people. And it's really great. And you're working to give back and to help people live their passions and really embrace them
Yes.
in a great way so that they can actually maybe even make a living doing what
Well,
they
that's
love.
kind of the whole point. Because most people, first of all, I'm 58, I'll be 59 in August. And what I notice is with people 40 and up, I would say, because 40 is kind of the time when you start to figure out, wait a minute, is this it? Is this what I'm doing for the next, 20 years? I don't know. This is, and either they love it, what they're doing, or they don't. And what I find is the majority of people are not loving what they do. And there's no reason why you can't make that thing that you love, that thing that you do. But most people mistakenly believe that there are only two paths to doing that. And the one is to do the thing, right? So either you're making, in my case, either you're getting booked as an actor or you teach the thing.
Hmm.
And those are the two paths that we kind of know as that's how you make a living from your passion. But there's actually a third path, and the great thing about this is that it also lets you learn. So you're coming at it from a beginner's standpoint, and you're learning while you're earning and building that bridge to where you actually want to be. So this was actually how I began to do that. So by the day that I decided I need to get back into acting, my very first challenge was how rusty I was. I hadn't really acted in 16 years. And I thought, okay, well, at the middle of that big gooey problem, challenge, whatever you want to call it, is the answer to my problem. So the answer was to get training, right? So if I feel like I'm rusty, the only remedy for that is to get training. So then that presented the next challenge because I was in Munich. I still am in Munich. Where do I get this high caliber training? Because I had been SAG-AFTRA equity in America, and I was kind of snobby about it. I didn't want to just take an amateur acting course. I didn't want something that was going to pull me down. I wanted to always be the worst in the class so that they could pull me up, you know?
Mhm.
And so that my second challenge was, okay, where do I get this? I can go to London, New York, LA, all the great places to get training. But of course, that would have been really expensive, not only monetarily, but also time wise. And I still had a teenage son. Even if he didn't want me hanging around, I needed to be hanging around.
I hate
And
teenage sons.
yeah, yeah. And so, but of course, again, the challenge, the problem presents a solution. Well, in an ideal world, I would have that training right here where I am, around my schedule, and with the coaches that I want to work with. Well, how do I do that? And I started reaching out to these amazing coaches that I'd always wanted to work with. I'd heard about them, and eventually one said yes. And then that gets the ball rolling. And once he had said yes, I came back and I sort of figured out, okay, what do I need to make this work? I know what I need to pay him and what I need for a room and all of those kind of things, the logistics of it. But what do I need to make this work, this viable for me financially? And I realized that because my intention back then was really only to get the free training or low cost training is what I was looking for. But what very quickly ended up happening was I was like, well, wait a minute, I'm putting in a lot of work here. So that's worth something. So I was getting the training for free. And not only did I meet my minimum requirements, I far exceeded it without maxing out I had a 14 seat limit on that course so that everybody would get the attention that they deserved from that coach. But I ended up selling it out. So on that very first weekend, on my very first workshop, I made 1,300 euros. And then within 3 months, I was bringing in 1 to 2 coaches a month and organizing practice sessions in between. So, and getting all of that for free, obviously. So that right there was saving me easily €1,000 a month, $1,000, you can call it, a month in the free training that I was getting. And I was earning yeah, between 4 and 5,000 a month in profit from the workshops. And it was all done in my spare time, building this bridge, literally plank by plank, back to where I wanted to be, which was a professional working actor again.
Now, how much spare time could you possibly have had? Because you had to reach out to this guy, and then you had to market it, and then you had to get the room, and then you had to
Yeah,
do.
that's
Oh,
true. But once you've done those things a couple of times, it first of all, you build an audience. And second of all, you get the systems in place, right? Then I knew what I had to say. And of course, once you get one really good coach, like he was amazing and really well known within the acting coaching world, with actors, he was really well known. So once I had him, that did a lot of the heavy lifting for me, because then other really great coaches were willing to sign on. Not only that, he was recommending them. So he came as the guinea pig and saw that, I treated him well. He got paid well. The caliber of actors that I was able to get into the workshop were good. And so he was like, yeah, here's, reach out to so-and-so, so-and-so. He gave me a bunch of names. So that made that part much easier. Plus, the actors were really loving the workshops. And so that word was getting around. And frankly, I mean, yes, I was marketing, but I wasn't doing any paid marketing. I was only doing organic marketing. So I would post something once or twice. I'm trying to think. I wasn't even doing it once a day back then. But this was a while ago. So I launched my very first one in 2013. It's a different world now. So you probably would have to post more. Although I still host workshops. But I have a mailing list now as well, right? So all of these things, it's like this flywheel that keeps building in more systems that you have in place to help you along.
You know what's interesting about that? And Rochelle's been with me about a year. First of all, I got to ask her Rochelle, would you like to be an actor?
Yes.
Would you? Really?
No, I really would. Actually, all my life, everybody was like, you should be a little actress because blah, 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 blah,
Well, why
whatever.
aren't you doing it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Have you ever
there's
taken an
nothing I
acting
haven't.
class? So now my
No,
thing is coming.
I know,
Have you ever taken an acting?
that's fine. I mean, if anything, get me riled up because I'm always open to trying anything once. I've always been that way.
Yeah.
Acting's just never kind of stood in front of my face and been something I was like, hey, I'm going to try this and I'm going to go do this. Does it mean
Well,
I won't? No.
So with any artistic path, you need to have the fire there, because it's
Right.
not easy, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a lot of other jobs that have very clear linear paths. So unless you're kind of really burning to do this, I would say find something else that lights you up. But if you're like, this is something that I really want to try, I mean, one thing I always recommend to everybody is take some improv classes. First of all, they're just a lot of fun.
Said that.
Yeah, they are. They're a lot of fun. Yes, and baby.
We here wholeheartedly endorse that.
Yeah.
And it can help in a myriad of ways. Not just acting.
Yes.
You can become a great salesperson that way. You can stand up in front of a bunch of people and not pee your pants. You can do all kinds of wonderful things when you are practicing improv. It really is a cool thing. By the way, before we get too far into this, I got to tell you, has anybody ever told you you look and sound like Demi Moore?
Yes.
That's not a bad comparison for someone to make.
Yeah, I used to get it all the time in the 80s when,
when she was more famous than she is now.
No, she just won the Palme d'Or for
Yeah, she did.
Substance. Yeah. So, yeah, I got it a lot back then. We're similar age, and I think back then as well, we had a similar haircut, or maybe we still do. I don't know. She's much darker than I am, though. But Yeah, I used to get it a lot back then, and then it became Courtney Cox was the one I always heard from
Oh
Friends.
yes, from
Yeah,
Friends,
Friends.
yeah.
yeah.
Yes. And by the way, I don't know that you know this, but we have got a gentleman who lives in Kenya who is a regular
No.
listener to the show. So we are indeed a worldwide presentation. And by the way, Rochelle can't go anywhere because she's stuck here. I'm afraid. She's not allowed to leave. She's got and I'm working to help her and to train her to become the most dynamic host on any radio show, and she's getting so much better, and she's so good at it. And but during the course of this show, if you want to give her, like I don't know, a tip or two, that would be like kind of a
Yeah.
awesome thing.
We love constructive criticism. It is a part of life and growth is good.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, it's something I really want to try. You're making me so curious. I say that all the time. And now I've met so many people who spark this curiosity in me. But I mean, acting and being told to do something like that goes back far with me. And it was kind of random to have you ask me that. And it's not even that, I want to be this big hot shot, this movie, that movie. It's really just something I think would be a good talent to learn and a way
Well,
to
you
fall
know
back
what,
on, a way to make
Rochelle?
money.
Ye Well, slow your roll right
Okay,
there.
okay, so I mean, like in a way of enjoying what I do and being able to
Yes.
profit from it in a beneficial way that's not just financially necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, you can when you earn money as an actor, you earn a lot of money. So that's
Yeah.
good, comparatively speaking. It's just that
Hmm.
bookings can be few and far between unless you're like a series regular on a TV show
Right.
or something, or you're an A-lister. And even then,
Yeah.
Sharon Stone didn't even make enough money. I think it was 2019 to qualify for health insurance through SAG. So it is not a guaranteed path. So definitely financial reward should not be the reason you get into it.
Right.
But what I was going to say, selfless or shameless plug, I should say, but honestly, you should take the 5-day, it's a free workshop coming up about
Okay.
how to organize, because that would be a perfect thing. So you could check out, well, what do I like? Would I like to do improv? Would
Okay.
I like to do more of a deep dive? The more you start to meet other people who are
Hmm.
also on that same path, you'll see there were other people who are taking other kinds of acting. Where are you located?
Um, I kind of go all over the place, but my home is in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Okay, so that sounds like it would be a good spot that you don't have. It's not known for having amazing acting coaches
Right.
or amazing
Yeah.
improv. I could actually hook you up with a couple of really great improvers in the States who I know would come because they've come here.
Oh, okay. That'd be amazing. I'm always open to learning and trying new things. I don't think there's anything besides this and maybe a few other things that are really like a niche for me that it is like I want to do this, I want this to profit me and be able to stay with me through my life. But
To be
even
able to
just like
sustain
I
you.
said,
Yeah,
for
sure.
yeah, and the learning through it. There's anything that you do, you're gonna learn so much through. And Kevin's always mentioned that. So right now I'm in a point in my life where I could make it work and it's standing right in front of me. So I mean, I have nothing to lose, and I would love to do that. And with that said, we need to take a quick break. We are past time because this is such a good conversation. But when we come back, I'd like to talk to you about what it was like when you first got into this and the things that you started to learn as you were able to help people that maybe changed your perspective a little bit. So stay with us. We got Kevin
Okay.
and myself and Anne Alexander-Sieder,
Like the
and
tree.
we'll be right back.
And if you are a real estate agent or want to be a real estate agent, but you can't figure out how to be a real estate agent because you can't make any money, I've got a guy who's going to help you be able to do that. Please listen to this and get a paper and a pencil and write this number down, and we'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Brachelle's here. That's her over there. That's her. And and Alexander-Sieder is with us as well. And she's an actor of note, and she's a teacher, and she has been able to put together some programs that can benefit everybody. And Brachelle, you had a question going into the break. Would you like to repeat that?
Yeah, so my question for you, Anne, is what was it like when you decided you wanted to do this and to actually make the actions and the steps forward when it started, and what you learned and how it persuaded what you thought you knew before as you helped others?
So how I got into it was honestly, I had stumbled kind of into a workshop. So my son and I had a standing movie date on Friday nights.
Oh,
He was about 16 years old. He canceled on me on a Thursday, and I think my husband was going out of town on a golf trip. So all of a sudden had the weekend to myself, which I hadn't had in like 17 years since I got pregnant, basically. And it was like, what do I alone want to do? What do I want to do? Not what are we going to do, but what do I want to do?
yeah.
And I just thought I would love to take an acting workshop. I just hadn't done that in so long. And I sat down and I Googled it, and one popped up in English with a coach out of LA with one spot open starting the next morning. And that was that. So I went and took it kind of like with high hopes and low expectations, but it was amazing. And I left it on fire, just like it just reignited my passion for acting in a way that was maybe even stronger than it had been when had been a young woman. And I told my husband, I want to relaunch my acting career. And he's like, okay, he didn't know what that meant. And so, whatever, and as I mentioned earlier, that presented the first problem, because even though I had been working acting adjacent for 16 years, so I had been doing voiceover, presenting, and commercials, that's not acting. That's not that's not acting for me at any rate. And so I was really rusty, and that presented the first problem, because in order to feel like confident in my skills, I needed to get my skills, I needed to tune up my instrument, to put it bluntly. And, as I said, there was only one way to do that, and that's through getting training, because acting is a team sport. You need to get that feedback. You need to have good coaches in there telling you what's working, what's not working, and to help you through, the places where you're not feeling loose, basically. And so that's what I began to do. And I mentioned how I did that earlier. I don't know. Do you want me to repeat
Yeah.
that? We already did
No,
that.
you're good.
Yeah?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. And and really, I was really myopic. I was like, acting, I need to get back to acting. So all I wanted to do was get that training and get to a level where I felt really confident again. And I knew that would happen organically. Like I knew that I would start to see it in people's reactions to my acting, and that I could feel it when I was connecting. And, I would know it, right, in those ways. And also I would get the feedback from people, because people tell you when they like what they see. So I knew that those things would happen. And I kept at it for about a year and a half. And I would say at about the year mark is when I really started seriously like looking for an agent, putting together show reels, those kind of things, all the kind of marketing materials that we need as an actor. And then I stopped doing the workshops for a couple of years. And it wasn't until I had gotten to a point where I was working again, which was great. But I got to a point where I felt like I was being typecast a lot, where my branding was off now, I would say. But I wouldn't have said it back then because I didn't have the words for it back then. But
Right.
I did know that they were not seeing me in the way that I knew I could be. In the way that I knew I could portray roles. So you heard on this, I don't know, for all of you who are not watching, you've heard that I resemble Demi Moore, Courtney Cox. So these are kind of, especially Demi Moore, can be kind of like, the bitch in charge. And I can do in my sleep, like that kind of a thing.
Mhm.
So I hope I'm allowed to swear on this.
No, you're
And
good.
and so, yeah, but I knew what they weren't getting was my humor and my warmth and my maternal side and my
Yeah.
empathy. And so I set about, fixing that. And one of the ways I had decided I wanted to do it was I wanted to shoot one short film a month. But filmmaking is expensive. So even when everybody's donating their time, you still have to pay for food and for travel and for equipment. Because if you want to get great DOPs to be, cinematographers working on your film, you have to offer them something. Oh, I've got a drone, I've got a crane, and all that stuff is expensive, right? So I started then to redo the workshops just with the idea of I just want to make money. So I didn't always take part in them, but I would organize the workshops just so I could fund my next short film.
Right.
And then phase 3, which is, I think I'll probably be in this phase forever, was using the workshops as a way to network. Because as a lowly actor, when you are trying to have a conversation with a casting director or a producer or whatever it is, there is this real and perceived huge hierarchy in the film industry. And that can get into your head, at times. Oh my gosh, I'm talking with a casting director who cast Skyfall and Scepter and Califat and, it's just like, oh, the Millennium Trilogy, right? She was, one of the very first people that I had teaching my workshop. And it was like, ugh. But as soon as I had a chance to speak with her, just like, I have something to offer you, I can, literally offer you something with financially as well as with a new audience, and possibly get to meet some actors that you might be interested in, et cetera, et cetera. And that changed the dynamics of it entirely, because all of a sudden then you're relating as two human beings. And even if it was all in my head, the fact that it changed that for me was worth it. And so then we're having conversations as two human beings and talking about things that we probably never would have talked about had it just been actor to casting director. And it really, it changed the dynamics of the relationships that I began to create with these people. And it's a very useful tool as far as having conversations with people or creating the possibility to let them get to know me as a human being and as an actor. I never, I'm always the actor, but I'm also always the human being. But sometimes the human being gets stuck behind the mask of being the actor. And then finally, I would say phase 4, the natural progression of this. So I've been doing this, since 2013, so almost 15 years now. The natural progression is that you start to get your own authority. So by interacting with these people and by continuing to work on your own craft, whatever that may be it acting or furniture upholstery, right? You are continuing to get better and better and better at your own thing. And then that sort of naturally leads to people asking you for advice, which do with it as you will. I have a coaching program now, 2 of them, right? So,
Right.
yeah, it's really the most organic way to build a bridge to where you want to get to, I think. And without having to deal with things like imposter syndrome. Like, had I just decided, hey, I had been a professional actor in the States, sure, I've had 16 years not acting, but what the heck? Once a professional, always a professional. I can teach this. Right? Then it just would have been, I would have felt like a real imposter, you know? And I think we also
Mhm.
live in this world of everybody needs to be a coach these days, but not everybody wants to be a coach. But that doesn't mean that they don't want to pursue their passions. It's just that they don't see that there's another option besides doing the thing or teaching the thing. And this is that third option.
And we need to take our halftime break, but when we come back, I would like to talk to you about, because I've got my own story with acting that involves this. How much of this is because you said yes to the universe and to the divine to say, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to contribute because this is my passion. And then you spent the rest of the time trusting your instincts and saying yes to it all. And that has led you to where you are today, which is really pretty magical, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I'm happy to dive back into that with you when we come back from the
Yeah.
break, because that I think is also fascinating and a really interesting mindset shift.
Indeed, indeed. And Rochelle, you want to take us to break?
Yes. So we're talking with Anne Alexander-Sieder. She has Act Bold and is teaching us things I've never heard from her perspective of an actor. So stay with us. Me and Kevin are here, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Rochelle, who she's over there, and me. And if you don't know who I am, it doesn't matter who I am. So in any event, we're talking with Anne Alexander-Sieder. And I wanted to ask you, because this happened to me, and I had no idea if that happens to anybody else, but and not on the grand scale of being in films and stuff like that. But I had a friend, and we were in the restaurant business together, and we were captains, and I opened bottles of wine and created Caesar salads and all that kind of stuff. And he came to me one day, and he said, I want to go to Green River Community College and take auto body. And I said, I hate cars. And he said, well, take it with me anyway. And so I hate cars, but I'll do it because I can probably learn something. So we get there, we're standing in line, and this is 1980. This is before computers. And so they had, 6-foot tables, and they had a little sign that said, mechanics or mathematics and stuff like that. And so we stood in line, and we were close to getting in the front. He said, you know what? I hate cars. I don't really want to take auto body. And I said, see, I told you. And he said, my dad's a professor here, so I'm going to go and go visit him in his classroom. And I said, well, I'm going to stay here because I want to see what's available. And so I get to the front of the line, and at the very front is at the 6-foot table. It says theater extraordinaire, and nobody was sitting at the table except for the professor or the director or whatever you want to call him. And so I went and sat down, and he said, well, I said, I would like to be an actor. I would love to do stuff. And he said, well, you need to take improvisational acting. So I took improvisational acting 101 and also theater extraordinaire, because that is where the productions were happening with the community college. And they had 3 a year. And like in this year was Fiddler on the Roof and Taming of the Shrew and a smaller production and stuff. And so I learned about improvisational acting, and they said, we want you to be an animal. And then I want you to be a caricature of that animal. And then I want you to be a person with the characteristics of that animal. And we did this over a couple of week period of time. And the whole idea was that you could create a character based upon an animal. I chose a turtle. And so I crawled around as a turtle. And then I was a caricature of a turtle and did improvisation and stuff like that, and made people laugh. And then I saw one gal lean over to the director, and who was directing Dark at the Top of the Stairs, which was a play that of note. And there was a character in it called Punky Givens. Punky Givens had no lines. Punky Givens was totally physical acting. And the idea was he was a very shy guy and stuff like that. And she was whispering into him, you know, that turtle? I think he would make a great Punky Givens, because the guy who was cast dropped out because it doesn't have any lines. I don't want to do that. And so I became Punky Givens, and it became the hit of the show, and everybody loved it. And then I auditioned for Fiddler on the Roof and got Lazar Wolf the Butcher, and which was a role of note. And then we did Taming of the Shrew, and I was Petruchio, and
Yeah.
which is Shakespeare, and it's like 50
Yeah.
pages of dialogue. My girlfriend almost left me at the time and stuff because of you know what that's like. Let's run some lines. I don't want to run lines. Well, we have to run lines. I got 50 lines of dialogue I gotta learn, or 50 pages
Yeah.
and stuff. And then while we were doing that show, there was one of the cast members who was an extra who worked at KGRG, which is the radio station on campus. And he said, you know, we have a time slot. Would you like to fill it? And so I went and learned how to do radio. And all of that was a precursor to what I'm doing now. Did you find that all kind of was serendipitous and just kind of everything lined up for you when you said yes to life and left yes to what you wanted to do?
I think always, but I just want to tell you one real quick thing. So Marlon Brando in The Godfather modeled his character on a bulldog. I don't know if you know that, but I'm sure you can see it now that I said it, right?
I can.
The other one, who's the pet detective, Jim Carrey, modeled that character on a parrot. And I'm sure you can see that now that I say it too. So it's so fascinating when people do that, right? Because you can see it without it being overt, without it being obvious. It's really interesting work, animal work. But anyway, that's a whole nother tangent. So yes, I think that we have agency over our lives, but I also think that everything happens for a reason. And I truly believe, you know, there are 3 things that we can control in our own lives. You know, what we think, what we do, and how we choose to perceive our experiences. And so if you choose, then everything is happening for you, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And I think it's, you know, it can be challenging. I've had certainly things that were very challenging, like, how is this for me? But I have come to believe that really is the case. And everything leads up to where you are right this minute. And even in this minute, we can be making choices about who we want to be and where we want to go. So I definitely believe very much in the universe offering. Maybe that's just the best way to put it, is offering. Whether or not you are willing to do the work of getting it, that's up to you. People do shut the door, and that is their choice. But
But
it
but
is,
the thing, Anne, that I want to bring Rochelle into this, but the thing that I think is so fascinating to me is that people decide that they cannot do something not because they cannot do it, but because they've been told by other people, "Oh no,
oh
you
yeah,
can't do that,"
oh yeah.
and stuff. And Rochelle, that I know that's happened to you in your life. And even though you're significantly younger, you're only what? You're 47 now. And okay, I'm lying.
Something around there. But yeah, I
Right.
see it. I
Mine, give
see
or
it
take.
even worse.
Give or
Yeah.
take 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the way I would definitely agree with that. Like w- I happen to coach actors, so that's the experience that I have with them
Mhm.
right now, because I have not yet launched this other course. But you know, people always have these mind blocks, and you have to get them past their limiting beliefs. First of all, to get them to even realize that something that they might have
Mhm.
ingrained this belief as truth. Because people, we have confirmation bias. And if you've been told 1,000 times in 1,000 different ways, you're never going to be anything, or you're not good enough. People react differently to that, of course, but that's there. And it could be this thing that is self-sabotaging you in subtle ways. It could be much more obvious ways. And everybody has limiting beliefs. It's just that often we think that these beliefs are the truth, and we don't challenge them because nobody challenges the truth. It just is. It's a fact. And it is not a fact. It is a belief. And there's
Mm.
always a way to challenge everything. I'm sure that the belief that the sky is blue, right, is a pretty widespread belief, but it is not a fact that the sky is blue. It is just happens to be the way we perceive light coming, through the prism of the environment and all, or through the atmosphere. And not only that, like right now the sky is gray, or how about in the morning when it's red and pink and orange, or in the evening and purple and yellow, and or at a storm, a tornado, it'll turn green. You
Mm.
just saw that, right? Were you in
Yeah.
the tornado
For the first time
recently?
ever, it was
Yeah.
black and green.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's what's crazy is I knew that was possible. I think so many people get stuck in that. We know it's possible, but if it's not right in front of us, eh, you know, it could happen. And we just like put it on the back end of like, anything can be that reality. And we do the same thing with our dreams. And I have to tell you, as I've gotten older, I used to say a lot that it was the younger people that were scared to do things and didn't believe this was possible and all this and that. But then I looked at it way further back and I realized that that comes from generations, even old people, that that's what they've been taught, so that's what they pass along. And it's not that they're wrong. Nothing is right or wrong unless you make it that way. Whatever you think you're right. I say that all the time lately.
Me too.
Um,
Henry Ford.
but it's
Yeah.
their yeah, and it's all based off of perspective. Because then you see, I actually once I looked at that, my perspective changed, and I started to see how younger people actually seem to not be afraid of anything these days. They'll do it all, no matter how many times someone tell them they can't. And even in times, it's still not that simple. And like you said, everybody handles it differently. But I realized what on a broad spectrum this is, and it all has to do with the way somebody perceives themselves through their life. Because if they look at life as them, that's always going to be changing. So I'm going to take this break 30 seconds real quick early. We'll have Kevin join us back in. And I would love to talk about that, is what it was like from your perspective of staying in yourself rather than absorbing everything around you and letting that kind of define who you were rather than who you weren't. So we'll be right back, everybody. Don't go anywhere. There's only 30 seconds of this commercial, and we have so much good stuff to talk about in the last 15 minutes. So we've got me, we've got Kevin, we've got Ann Alexander-Sieder, and we will be right back. Kevin, do you want to take us into break, or do you want me? Well, I kind of just did that.
You
You know what I mean?
go, girl. You're just hot, 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 hot.
Well, thank you, thank you. So let me find the right commercial here. I'll just play one, and we'll be right back. Stay with us, everybody.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
And welcome back to Positive Talk, everybody. So Anne, I know I've asked you some really broad questions, and you have handled them so beautifully by covering all the aspects. So my question for you, which we can get through quickly because I want to make sure Kevin gets to have his last question as well and have time towards the end, but pretty much kind of just touch on what it was like on how you kept yourself grounded inside of who you were and your soul self, rather than to absorb and be defined by all the things that became around you.
Whew. You know, it's a great question. I'm not sure that I was ever aware. How can I put this? Whenever I've had to face really difficult things, I've
Mhm.
always known that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. Even if it's pitch black right now, I know that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. I just need to get through it. And now I always call this my ring of fire. So I just have to get through this ring of fire. And I know that if I can get through that, and I know I can, then I'm going to be okay on the other side. And it's just uncomfortable and not fun when you're in one, but it's part of it. It's just part of it. And I think that those are and I'm also, I think, at heart, I am an optimistic person. And that helps. I truly believe that there is that light at the end of the tunnel, even if I can't see it. Yeah. And I guess that's the definition of optimism. And that helps. And, you can cultivate that to a certain extent. Some people are more, prone to that than other people. And for the people who are not as prone to it, I would say really lean into training yourself to fight against those limiting beliefs, those negative beliefs that are keeping you in the tunnel as opposed to moving forward. Because that's the thing with life. We always have to be moving forward. We can't stay still. We can't stagnate.
Yeah.
We really have no choice, because whether we like it or not, we're going to be moving forward, but we do get a choice of how we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
And stuff. And by the way, and because you are an actor of note, and you've got these programs, and you are really, what do you think of, Brachelle hasn't been with me for that long, and I love having her on the show. What do you think? Are we a good combination?
Yeah, of course. Don't you think? Yes, absolutely. No, she's a nice counterpart, and I mean, obviously, she's got a good head on her shoulders, and she comes up with some really good insight as to why things are important to understand in a certain way. So if you're not a coach, Michelle, you should think about being a coach because you definitely have that innately in you. Yeah.
Well, thank
You
you.
know,
I've actually been told that quite frequently, and really, I give the grace to this show, to Positive Talk, to our guests, to people like you, to Kevin himself, because I didn't know how to do any of this. This right here to me is my beginning improvisational acting or whatever you call it, because I didn't used to be like that. A lot of times, I think with learning, um, this has taught me communication a whole different way because I understand now that most people only communicate to respond. They're not communicating to listen. And so Kevin would tell me, okay, I love how you're able to connect with people and share your perspective as well as theirs. But what if you just sat still and you just listened and you had none of your own thoughts and you kind of just let it go through you? And now I get what he means about like these questions, they just come from everything else, all of the everything else. And it's not even me. It's a question that I can feel that probably a lot of other people tend to have. And it's helped me in my life a lot just to be able to be still in moments and learn what I can from a conversation I'm in, because the more you ask questions, the more people will tell you. And it's also taught me to ask for help and to trust
Yeah.
other people and be able to be open to that. So thank you so much for that. Kevin has helped me so much, and I've worked for it very hard, and I love being here. And before we go to, if Kevin, I want you to ask another question if you have one, but I really want to touch on your coaching and the new thing that you're coming out with the new acting.
Passion.
And
No, it's
yeah, I
passion,
myself
project,
would
and
love
purpose.
that.
So that's
yes,
okay.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and I wanted you to touch on your coaching and the new program that you. Wait a minute, that's what you just said. So,
Yeah. Wait a minute.
so you go, girl, and Alexander-Sieder is our guest. She is an actor, a coach, a podcaster of note, and also she has put together some programs that she's going to tell you about right now. And if the universe in your world, the universe is saying yes, say yes to it because this is important. Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, well, really, as I was saying earlier, it really just came about because I had had so many conversations with friends and friends of friends and just, people, right? And I'm a naturally curious person. You mentioned I'm a podcaster, it's true. And so I often ask, what do you do? Do you enjoy it? Is that what you always wanted to do? And that will often lead to, well, no, and I found that was because that was the answer more than I expected. I mean, I knew I had a back burner passion that I was able to reignite, but I didn't realize how many people have back burner passions. And it really started to get me, well, first of all, when I would have the conversations were really, they weren't anything to do with me teaching anybody anything. I just was curious. And over the years, I kept finding myself saying, no matter, somebody would say they want to flip furniture. I was like, well, why aren't you doing that? And, well, I don't, well, I don't know. I don't know how to reupholster. I don't know how to finish wood. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. It's like, well, you could do this and you could do, you have to find an upholsterer and you have to, see if you can organize a workshop or, you could get an antiques dealer and see if they can give a seminar on how to, understand what makes a piece of furniture worth salvaging from a junk shop or something like that, right? So it's always following that first question to its most logical solution. Like I felt like my training was rusty, so I needed to get training. I felt like my skills were rusty, so I needed training. But if I wanted to be a cake decorator, if I wanted to make amazing cakes for my friends and family every anniversary, whatever, people into the cake decorating, right? Or wedding cakes or whatever it is, or, well, it begins with how do you how do you make that basic cake, right? How do you make the icing? How do you practice those little curly cues and leaves? And what are the tricks to that? And how do you, all of these different things. And so there really, I think that there's a way to do a deep dive on everything. I have an example that I use in this upcoming workshop, challenge rather, called the puppetry principle. And really, every passion contains universes of possibilities. So with the puppetry principle, that's a mouthful, there, it all stemmed from, I had seen The Adding Machine years ago as a puppet show. And this is an old, industrial age. It was about somebody who stabs his boss to get with a pencil to death after being replaced by an adding machine. And I think it's very apropos today. I would love to redo it today because of AI and all that, but that's a whole nother story. But in any case, they had done it with puppets, and they did the bukkara, which are the Japanese puppets that sometimes 3 people all dressed in black are moving at the same time, or the shadow puppets, the Vietnamese shadow puppets, or marionettes, or hand puppets. And it was such a fascinating show. And because of that, it got me thinking there are so many different ways that you could explore that. If it were me, I would probably be like, how do I make these puppets? That would be really fascinating for me. Yeah. And how to use them to perform. But somebody else might be interested in bukkara just to understand teamwork. How do you get 3 people to move together in unison, making it seem like one organic being, and how long does it take to understand that and doing all that, and what kind of communication, because there is no verbal communication when you're doing all of that. So, or using maybe puppets to express trauma. You just had the commercial on for Coven House, and kids need a safe way to express their traumas. So there are so many worlds, depending on your interests, that you can explore with your passion. And the thing about it is you become like a museum curator. The museum curator gets the artists in, they create the show, the exhibit around their interests, around their curiosities, around their passions. And as a curator of whatever your passion happens to be, you are also creating this curriculum based on what you like. And people are going to be attracted to that or not. But the people who are will be drawn in. Yes.
I have to tell you this, because you brought up puppetry, and you can make puppets out of almost anything. As a matter of fact, there's a troupe.
Sustainability would be another thing, right? There's so many things.
Well, and there's a troupe out of Australia, and I don't know if they're still touring now, but when I was doing my show in 2003, I sent one of my people to their show. They were from Australia, and it was called Puppetry of the Penis.
Funny. Okay. And they made it out of dildos or what?
No, they would appear on stage butt naked, and they would take their member and fold it into different shapes and different things. They made a hamburger out of it. Then they made a hot dog out of it. Then they made this and that. And they built an entire script around the fact that, number one, there weren't very many men, and most of the women were a little uncomfortable with guys on stage, messing with themselves. But you can do anything, and that isn't that the secret to life. You can do anything at any time, any way you want to, and that's the beauty.
That is, well, and it's the most interesting workshops are when you are truly bringing together 2 things that you love. So for instance, if it were sustainability and puppetry, how to take garbage, like, what was that play, Warhorse, I think it was. I don't know if you saw it. Amazing play. Anyway, they had made the horse out of garbage cans. All of a sudden, it was gorgeous. It was huge, If you didn't see it, you should see it. It's an amazing play. But yeah, I think when you can combine things, that makes for really, really interesting. Time's up.
Is it time's up? And Anne, I want you to go through your information one more time, because I want people to go do this 5-day training that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So it's a free 5-day challenge. If what I've talked about has resonated with you or piqued your curiosity, definitely go and take a look at it. You can DM me on Instagram. That's probably the easiest thing. And I can just send you a link to sign up for it. We're getting close to our limit. So if you're interested, do it quick. It is from June 2nd to June 6th. And it's going to be action packed. It's not just fluff. It's every day, getting you understanding what kind of a workshop, figuring out what your niche would be, how to go about it, all of those things every day, building you closer and closer to understanding what you could make into a sustainable kind of long-term bridge back to where you want to go.
And this is your pilot one, but there's going to be many more coming down. So if you're listening to this and it ain't anyway, if it isn't within the normal timeline of the next week or so, look up the information anyway, because these classes are going to continue, and it's going to be a big deal. So so do that. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Kevin, Brichelle. It was such a pleasure talking with both of you.
Isn't she delightful?
Well.
I'm talking about Anne, of course.
Yes, we love her, and you have to come back because I have so many more questions.
Amazing. I'm happy to answer them. Yeah. So, I guess I should give you my Instagram. It's @_bold.
Perfect.
@_bold and
Bold.
Rochelle, take us away.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Go visit Anne Alexander-Sieder at Act Bold. Get curious with yourself. Find out if this is something that could teach you something and you'd love to do. It's been an honor with you, Anne. Thank you for being here. And Kevin, as always, we love you, and myself. So stay with us, everybody, for the rest of the day, because we have another amazing show. And until then, take care. We love you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another, because each other's